Welcome to Mental Health is Real. What they called crazy was always my power. A journey into the sacred, the misunderstood, and the magnificently human. This is not just a book. It is a mirror, a compass, a return. For too long, our pain has been pathologized, our visions called delusions, our sensitivities mistaken for weakness. But beneath the labels and diagnoses lies a truth deeper than medicine, louder than stigma. You are not broken. You are awakening. The storms you've weathered were never meant to destroy you. They were the friction required to set your soul on fire. Inside these chapters, we will speak the unspeakable, walk through the mind's shadows, and resurrect the gifts hidden beneath our trauma. From ancestral interference to governmental control, from unseen frequencies to the sacred madness we call schizophrenia, we will name it all. We will honor it all. We will reclaim it all. Because healing doesn't always look like silence, stillness, or smiles. Sometimes it looks like rage, like vision, like voices that don't belong to this world. Sometimes healing looks like you. So breathe deep, you're not alone anymore. This is your invitation to remember, to unmask, to return home to the self they tried to erase. Welcome to your power. Welcome to your medicine. Welcome to the truth. Mental health is real. Chapter 1. The Invisible Storms. There are storms you can't see. They don't rattle the windows. They don't flood the streets. But they live behind someone's eyes. They wake people up at 3 a.m. for no reason. They keep them staring at the ceiling. Breath shallow, heart racing, mind running. Some people walk with a smile on their face and a war in their chest. You'd never know. They've mastered the art of holding it in. Depression doesn't always look like tears. And acting in the room is the crime scene turning into factories, making pain in ways of money and feelings caring for it. And acting in the room is the fire of wake ones, or needing to keep everything perfect because the smallest crack feels like the end of the world. We call these things mental illness. But let me ask you a question, beloved. What if the mind isn't sick? What if it's overloaded? What if it's holding too much pain, too many memories, too many generational rooms passed down like family heirlooms no one asked for? You see, your mind is not a machine, it's a sacred temple. And sometimes, sacred places shake before they heal. There are invisible storms that rage in people who were never taught how to speak their truth. People raised in homes where crying was weakness, where emotions were punishable, where survival meant silence. So now, they're grown, but their inner child is still hiding under the bed. Still waiting for someone to say, "You're safe now." This chapter is for them. The overthinkers, the ones who isolate, the ones who feel too much, the ones who feel nothing, the ones who show up every day, smiling, working, nodding, even though a part of them is missing. You're not alone. You never were. Your pain is real. Your silence is heard. Your storm is seen. And there is nothing wrong with you for feeling it. So let's say this together, softly, gently, like a whisper only your soul needs to hear. I am not broken. I am becoming. This storm is not my end. It's my transformation. Chapter 2. The masks we wear. They taught us early. Don't let them see you cry. Man up. Fix your face. Be strong. And so we did. We became experts in performance. We wore smiles like armor. Laughter became camouflage. Success became a disguise. And silence became our survival. But behind closed doors, there are men screaming into pillows. Women staring into mirrors trying to remember who they were before the pretending. There are children in grown bodies, still waiting for someone to say, "You don't have to hide anymore." You see, in this world, pain gets punished. Vulnerability gets marked. So we adapt. We put on our unfine faces, our "I got it all together" voices, and we keep going. Even if it costs us everything. Because somewhere along the line, we started believing that love was conditional, that showing pain meant weakness, that softness made us disposable. But the truth is, the strongest people you know are the ones hiding the most. Some of us weren't taught how to heal. We were only taught how to hustle, how to move on, how to make it look good from the outside. But the body remembers, the soul remembers. And no mask can hide the weight of what we bury. You can't meditate your way out of a mask you refuse to remove. You can't pray your way past pain you pretend doesn't exist. Healing doesn't happen in performance. It happens in presence. This chapter is a mirror, not to expose you, but to remind you. You were never meant to pretend. You were meant to be free. Take off the mask. even if just for a moment. Let your soul breathe, because the ones who truly love you don't need the act. They need you, the raw, the real, the still healing. And if no one has said it yet, you're allowed to be seen. You're allowed to be messy. You're allowed to be human. Let this be the chapter where the mask cracks and the light pours through. Chapter 3. A history of control. Before they called it mental illness, they called it possession, rebellion, nonconformity, divine madness. Before therapy rooms and prescription pads, there were shackles, shock treatments, straitjackets, and silence. This chapter isn't about paranoia. It's about patterns. You see, when a system wants to control a people, it starts with the mind. And history is full of quiet wars no one ever declared. Wars fought in laboratories, in classrooms, in newsrooms, in neighborhoods. Wars designed not to kill the body, but to break the spirit. Let's talk about MK Ultra, a real program, funded, documented, hidden in plain sight, mind control experiments on civilians, without their knowledge, using trauma, drugs, hypnosis, isolation. Why? Because a fractured mind is easy to program, because confusion breeds compliance, because if they can make you question your own reality, they never need chains again. But the science didn't stop there. They created media to keep you afraid, education to keep you memorizing, not imagining, food to keep you sluggish, religion to keep you obedient, prisons to catch the ones who tried to remember. This isn't fantasy. This is control, passed down in the language of normal. We are the children of survivors, of broken treaties and redlining, of sterilizations and experiments, of Tuskegee and COINTELPRO, of Project Paperclipping for your own good. They rewrote our memories, reclassified our tribes, called prophets schizophrenic, called rebels criminal, called healers crazy. But somewhere deep in our DNA, we remember. We remember when our minds were sacred, when our dreams were maps, when the visions weren't dismissed, they were respected. This chapter isn't about conspiracy, it's about clarity. Mental illness is real, so is control, and when the two meet, there's often a deeper truth buried beneath the diagnosis. So ask yourself, who benefits when you don't trust your own mind? Who profits from your confusion? Who gains when you are sedated, silenced, or ashamed? And more importantly, what power might return to you once you begin to remember? This chapter is a key, not to scare you, to wake you. The history of control is not your destiny, but it is a page worth reading before you tear it out and write your own. Chapter 4. Programmed from birth. They wrapped us in blankets, but they also wrapped us in beliefs. Before we knew our own names, they gave us their stories. What to think, what to fear, what to chase, what to hate, what to love, and what to ignore. We weren't just born, we were programmed, not by a single hand, but by a system with many faces. The teacher who said, "Stay in line." The cartoon that taught us who the villain looked like. The commercial that made us feel ugly without their product. The preacher who said, "Don't question." The test that said, "This is your worth." The news that told us who to fear. The classroom that taught Columbus discovered something already lived in. From birth we were downloaded with commands. Be quiet, be normal, fit in, follow the rules, trust authority, doubt yourself, don't dream too loud, don't cry too much, don't color outside the lines. We learned how to edit our souls to survive, to shrink our voice to get a gold star, to second guess our gut when it didn't match the curriculum. But here's the truth, they never raised us to be free, they raised us to be manageable. So we sit in therapy wondering, why do I feel like I'm not enough? Why do I sabotage my peace? Why do I keep repeating cycles I never chose? Because somewhere deep inside us, the code is still running. It whispers, you're not worthy, you're not smart enough, you're too emotional, you'll never be more than this. But hear this now, just because something was programmed into you, doesn't mean it belongs to you. You can rewrite the code, you can unlearn the fear, you can install the doubt, you can update your soul. They gave us a system, but we carry something older than any program. Instinct, vision, spirit. The part of you that remembers freedom. The part of you that resists without knowing why. The part of you they couldn't reach. This chapter is your permission slip. To feel, to question, to rebel, to reprogram. You were not made to be a copy. You were made to be a creator. So now, beloved, what will you choose to believe? What will you decide to remember? What will you program into your becoming? Chapter 5. The gift inside the madness. They never told us the truth about madness. They only showed us the shaking hands, the padded rooms, the muffled cries, the pills that turned gods into ghosts. But they never told us about the visions, the dreams that came before dawn, the voices that speak in rhythm, the symbols written in the clouds, the portals seen by eyes the world called broken. You see, what they call crazy might just be clearer than the rest of us. What if schizophrenia isn't just a disorder, but a doorway? What if bipolar swings are just the heart's way of riding waves between realms? What if the mind that splinters is simply trying to hold more than one reality at once? In ancient times, the dreamers, the seers, the ones who spoke in strange tongues, they were not institutionalized, they were initiated. But today, they're drugged, dismissed, diagnosed, because a society built on control fears anything it cannot label, and power is always hidden in the things we're told to fear. Have you ever spoken to someone in a manic state? Sometimes it sounds like chaos, but if you listen, truly listen, there are stars in their sentences, codes in their cadence, a kind of rhythm that the average mind can't translate. What if they're receiving downloads from frequencies our training won't allow? What if the mind that breaks is actually breaking free? This isn't to romanticize pain. Suffering is real. Confusion is real. Isolation is real. But beneath the madness, there may also be medicine. Because some of the greatest prophets, poets, inventors, and revolutionaries heard voices, saw visions, felt too deeply, lived on the edge of two worlds. Einstein, Nina Simone, Van Gogh, Lauryn Hill, Tesla, they were all labeled something. But what they really carried was light too bright for boxes. This chapter is a reminder. What they mock in you may be the map to your purpose. What feels like chaos might be your calling in disguise. So if you've ever been told you're too much, too emotional, too sensitive, too strange, too intense, remember this: too much is exactly what the world needs. Too much truth, too much feeling, too much vision, too much soul. The gift inside the madness is you, and your power is not a problem, it's a prophecy. Chapter 6. Frequencies, portals, and inner sight. Everything is vibration, from your heartbeat to your heartbreak. From the words you whisper to wounds you hide. Everything carries a frequency, and some of us were born tuned to the notes others can't hear. They call it sensitivity. We call it sight. Because there are those who feel what's not said. We know when someone is lying, without evidence, who can walk into a room and taste the tension before a word is spoken. You're not broken. You're tuned in. They never taught us that the body is an antenna, that the brain is a receiver, that the soul listens to tones, not just talk. 528 Hz heals, 639 Hz harmonizes, 963 Hz opens the crown. But you were never given the scale. They gave you school books instead of tuning forks, therapy instead of ceremony, silence instead of song. But your soul remembered. That's why certain music gives you chills, why your dreams come with symbols, why you feel pulled to the moon, or overwhelmed during storms, or emotional for no logical reason. Because logic is not the only language. You were born with inner sight. Some call it the third eye, some call it intuition, some call it imagination. But it's real, it's ancient, and it's active. Some people see a tree, others see a portal. Some hear a song, others hear a message. That doesn't make them sick, that makes them sensitive to the signal. If you've ever felt crazy because you feel everything, if you've ever cried for someone else's pain, if you've ever known something you couldn't prove, you're not alone. You're just vibrating on a different bandwidth. And yes, it can be overwhelming. It can feel like madness when you're surrounded by people who've gone numb just to survive. But you weren't born to go numb. You were born to remember that you are electric, that your voice carries power, that your emotions are information, that your tears are sacred, that your dreams are blueprints, that your heart is a compass. This chapter is your return to that remembering, to trust your inner radar, to honor your unseen gifts, to know that the veil between this world and the next is thinner than you were told. You are a portal, a walking frequency, a living witness to a world beyond the five senses. And once you stop doubting your sensitivity, you'll start unlocking your superpowers. Chapter 7. Diagnosed but not understood. They gave you a label. They handed you a prescription. They smiled politely and said, "You have depression. You're bipolar. You're manic. You're borderline." And just like that, your complexity was boiled down to a diagnosis code. But no one asked what happened to you. No one asked what you survived. No one asked about your childhood, your ancestors, your dreams, your soul, because this system isn't built to understand. It's built to contain. They treat the symptoms, but never touch the story. You said, I feel like I'm drowning. They said, take this. You said, I can't sleep. My heart won't slow down. They said, you're anxious. You said, I keep hearing voices that sound like warnings. They said, you're delusional. But what if those voices were memories? What if that racing heart was your intuition? What if your depression was your spirit rejecting a life that doesn't fit? You see, healing doesn't begin with a diagnosis. It begins with being heard. But in today's world, people don't listen to pain. They categorize it. They don't ask why your soul is splintering. They hand you pills to dull the signal. This isn't anti-science. This is pro-truth. There are good therapists out there, good medicine, good support systems. But too often, people are diagnosed but not understood. Because understanding takes time. It takes presence. It takes listening to things that don't always make sense. It takes witnessing someone's storm without trying to force the sun. And sometimes, the system doesn't know what to do with someone who doesn't fit neatly into a box, so they force them into one. You are not a diagnosis. You are not a label. You are a landscape, a collection of stars and scars, of bloodlines and breakdowns, of dreams that never made it to words. So let me say this, if no one ever has. You are more than your chart. You are not defective. You are not too much. You are not a disorder. You are a soul navigating a world that has forgotten how to slow down, how to feel, how to see. This chapter is for every person who walked out of an appointment with more confusion than clarity, who took the meds but still felt the ache, who followed the advice but still felt unseen. You're not crazy. You're not wrong. You've simply been mislabeled by a system that stopped listening. So here's your reminder. Healing is not compliance. Healing is reclamation. Reclaim your story. Reclaim your rhythm. Reclaim the right to be understood on your own terms. Chapter 8. The Path of the Healer. The healer's path doesn't begin with light. It begins in the dark. It begins with a scream in silence, a breakdown in secret, a night where even God feels far away. No one wakes up and says, I want to be a healer. No, they survive something that should have killed them. And instead of becoming bitter, they become open. The path of the healer is not glamorous. It's gritty. It's lonely. It's raw. Because before you can carry anyone else's pain, you have to face your own. Before you can speak into someone else's storm, you have to know what it feels like to drown. The best healers didn't get degrees. They got wounds. And from those wounds, they grew roots. And from those roots, they grew wisdom. You see, pain has its own language. And only those who've walked through fire can speak fluently to the ones still burning. But here's the part they don't always tell you. Healing doesn't mean you're always healed. It means you're committed to the journey. It means you bleed with intention. It means you cry without shame. It means you learn to hold space for others without shrinking your own soul. You'll be misunderstood, called too sensitive, too intense, too deep. But don't let them shame your medicine. The world needs your tenderness, your truth, your way of seeing what others miss, your way of saying, it's okay not to be okay, and meaning it with your whole heart. The healer walks a different road, not above anyone, not better than, just deeper. They listen more than they speak. They feel more than they show. They carry more than they let on. But they know that every tear, every scar, every sleepless night wasn't for nothing. It was alchemy. It was preparation. Because the same energy that once shattered you is now the light you use to guide others home. This chapter is your reminder. You are not just healing for you. You are healing for generations. For the ancestors who couldn't. For the children yet to come. For the parts of yourself that almost gave up. You are the medicine you are looking for. So keep walking. Keep rising. Keep feeling. Because the path of the healer is never easy, but it is always sacred. Chapter 9. I am not broken. I am becoming. There comes a moment, after the tears have dried, after the rage has quieted, after the silence has taught a final lesson, when you no longer see yourself as broken, you begin to see yourself as becoming. Not a victim of what happened, but a vessel of what's possible. Not defined by your scars, but refined by them. You are not the labels they gave you. You are not the moments that tried to destroy you. You are not your worst day, your hardest night, or your loudest breakdown. You are the rebirth that came after. Because every time you chose to breathe when it hurt, every time you chose to stay when you wanted to disappear, every time you whispered I'm still here when everything said you shouldn't be, you were becoming. Becoming softer and stronger. becoming wiser and wider, becoming the version of you that your younger self was praying for. It's not about perfection, it's about presence, about showing up fully, even when your voice trembles, even when your hands shake, even when the path is unclear. You are not meant to be fixed. You are never broken. You are meant to unfold, to evolve, to rise again and again. This is your metamorphosis. Your mental health journey is not a detour. It is the path, the sacred, messy, beautiful, holy path. You felt deeply. You've cracked open. You've asked the big questions. You've danced with the dark and come back with stars in your hands. So let the world see you now, not as damaged, but as divine in motion. Let them hear your story, not as tragedy, but as testimony. Let them witness your becoming. Because every chapter in this book has not been about what's wrong with you. It's been about what's rising within you. Say it with me now, not just with your voice, but with your heart. I am not broken. I am becoming. And becoming is the bravest thing I've ever done. So here we are, at the end, but not really. Because this isn't the end of your story. This is where the knowing begins. You've walked through storms with no name. You've unmasked the silent suffering. You've faced the systems that tried to shape you. You've touched the edge of madness and found medicine there. You've listened to the voices within, not with fear, but with reverence. You've remembered what the world forgot, that mental health is not weakness. It is wisdom under pressure. It is the soul trying to speak when the world forgets how to listen. This audiobook was never just about diagnosis. It was about divinity. It was about reclaiming the mind as a sacred altar, not a battleground. You are not your trauma. You are not your scars. You are not your symptoms. You are a portal, a frequency, a living testament to what healing truly looks like when it's messy, when it's honest, when it's human. So breathe deep, beloved. Stand tall in your truth and walk forward, not as someone who needs fixing, but as someone who has remembered who they are. You are not broken. You are becoming, and becoming is the real revolution.